Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with J Dash and JK47. We're going to talk some AL Central baseball for you, specifically the Detroit Tigers. Did anybody sign Yoenis Cespedes? I know he wasn't.
The Mets.
Did they finally re-sign him?
Yeah.
Because there was talk early in the free agency that Detroit was looking at him.
Again, huh?
Yeah, I don't understand baseball. They get rid of players and bring players back way too much.
Now, Detroit, they didn't bring back Yoenis Cespedes, but they did get a very good outfielder in Justin Upton to play left field for him. That was a huge signing. And the other big signing they made was starting pitcher Jordan Zimmerman. They signed him to a 5-year deal. Bringing him in, he is probably immediately their best pitcher, I would say. What do you think, 47?
I think he's going to play very well in that ballpark. You know, he likes to keep the ball down. I mean, Comerica Park's actually known for pretty much being a pitcher's park in the first place. So, I mean, it's definitely going to be a nice move to fit at the top of their rotation. And, I mean, given Anibal Sanchez getting better from last year's debacle and Justin Verlander obviously looked like his old self almost at the end of last year.
Well, I wouldn't say his old self, but he did look much better and definitely respectable and deserves to be in this rotation. They also signed starting pitcher Mike Pelfrey. They brought in relievers Mark Lowe and Bobby Parnell. You remember Bobby Parnell was closing for the Mets for a little while a couple years ago, and some injuries derailed his career. They brought him in. Maybe they can get him back pitching like he was with the Mets a couple years ago, and that would be a huge add as well.
Ex-Bucco, too. Don't forget Justin Wilson's there.
Yeah, they brought in Justin Wilson in a trade with the Yankees. That was a steal by the Detroit Tigers, in my opinion.
That's going to be a nice That's going to be a nice addition to the back end of that bullpen.
Yeah, they gave up. Go ahead.
What can you reasonably expect out of Verlander? Sorry, I wanted to ask you this a minute ago, but you guys just talked too long.
Well, I mean, obviously he's not going to be running up to triple digits in the 8th and 9th inning anymore, but I'll tell you what, I mean, he can still push that fastball up into the mid-90s whenever he has to. I mean, he's still a very good pitcher, which he showed last year, so he's plenty capable of still going deep in the ball games and giving you those quality starts that you're going to actually need at the top of that rotation.
Yeah, what you'd actually like is you'd hope Jordan Zimmerman comes in and is the number one out there and pitches like a number one. And then hopefully, like you said, 47, Anibal Sanchez pitches at least like a number 2 pitcher for you. Then you can say, okay, Verlander, all you have to do is pitch like a number 3 this season to have great value for them.
Verlander's getting paid top dollar.
Verlander does get money. I mean, he's not going to pitch to his contract, obviously. You can't expect that now. They also made a deal to bring in Francisco Rodriguez, reliever from the Brewers. They gave up infielder Javier Betancourt for him. Francisco Rodriguez, he's probably going to go to the back end of that bullpen there.
Somehow keeps getting it done. I mean, he keeps losing velocity, but I mean, he's
no A-Rod.
How does he do it? He's the active leader.
He's K-Rod.
He's the active leader in saves right now for Major League Baseball.
He is 34 years old. We'll have to see what he has left, but I don't mind that as my closer. He's always seemed to get it done.
Old as balls.
I mean, not really. I mean, don't forget, I mean, he also came into the league whenever he was like 20 years old.
Right. He was young.
So, I mean, even just like his teammate Miguel Cabrera, who broke into the major leagues at 19 years old, I mean, he was actually winning a World Series when he first came up as a rookie.
I'm old, so if players are older than me, they're old as balls.
They also signed utility infielder Mike Avias. This has always been a good player for Cleveland, and I think this is a good addition as well. Like I said, they brought in Justin Upton for the outfield. They signed catcher Jared Saltalamacchia as well. This guy had some big upside at one time. He's kind of tailed off here later in his career, but he still has some power. Strikes out a little bit too much.
That's an understatement. But, I mean, he'll give you good defense behind the plate, though. I mean,
right.
Which is what they're going to mainly ask him to do, is handle that pitching staff. I mean, obviously,
I don't know if they're going to start him or not, man. They actually have another guy out there.
James McCann.
James McCann. He actually had his first full season last year with him, got 400 at bats, and I mean, he hit 260 something, I believe it was. He hit 264 with him. He didn't take many walks, so his on-base percentage was under 300, but 7 home runs and 400 at bats, so he showed a little bit of upside at the plate. So they may go with McCann instead of Saltalamacchia. They also have Brian Holiday out there as well. So we'll have to see what they do at catcher, but bringing in Saltalamacchia as a second or third catcher isn't a terrible deal. They also brought in Casey McGee for third base. I think they signed him to a minor league deal, actually bring him in the camp and see if he can make the team.
Was he a Pirate?
He was a Pirate
at one time, yeah.
Yeah, no wonder that garbage name sounds familiar.
Well, I mean, his best years were in Milwaukee. He had a couple of really good seasons, and the guy. I'll tell you what. I mean, I like that. I like the acquisition of Cameron Maben. You know, he's
Maybe he'll be good for you.
Well, I mean, he's heading into his prime right now. He's had a little bit of injury issues over his career. He actually started himself off as a high draft pick in the Detroit Tigers organization. Had a solid season for Atlanta last year. Flashed a little bit of pop. He has a little bit of speed, and he'll play good defense for you.
Yeah, I think he had over 20 stolen bases and had 10 home runs. Like you said, he plays good defense. So while he's not a superstar or anything, like people thought maybe he could be at one time back in the day, I mean, this guy is definitely an acceptable center fielder and gives you great value.
Getting a healthy Victor Martinez back is going to do wonders for this lineup also.
Yeah, him at DH. I mean, I look at this team, and I think they have the pieces to compete in this division. I think this division is going to be very tight this season. I'm not going to sit here and say any one team has a definitive advantage. I see a lot of good teams in this division, pretty much same as the AL East.
Who's all in the Central?
The Central is Detroit, the Chicago White Sox, the Cleveland Indians, Minnesota Twins, and Kansas City Royals.
See, I don't know why I always forget Kansas City's in the Central when it makes perfect sense. It just never registers in my brain.
That's Kansas City.
Yeah, pretty much. I understand they won the World Series, but I'm saying other than their baseball team, who really cares about Kansas City? The only other good thing they got is barbecue.
I can always go for a good Kansas City steak. Not that I've ever been there, but I mean...
A couple players they lost. They lost Alex Avila in free agency. They lost Raji Davis to free agency. Starting pitcher Kyle Lobestein to free agency, and relief pitcher Tom Gorzolani as well.
One going to the Pirates. Another guy played with the Pirates.
Yeah. Did Raji Davis spend time in the minor league system with the Pirates?
I'm not really sure. I'd have to look at one.
I may be wrong about that one. But look, they got a couple players that are
DJ
unsigned.
Davis.
No, I actually think Raji Davis was there at one time, but I might just be completely wrong. A couple players that are unsigned for him. Alfredo Simon, a starting pitcher, gives you some decent value as a middle of the rotation, back of the rotation type pitcher. Reliever Joe Nathan, obviously he's getting old now, and Randy Wolf is getting old as well. All three of those that remain unsigned as of right now.
I like Detroit, but I'm an Indians fan, so I kind of got to hope that Detroit doesn't win the Central. Although I respect their organization.
I'll tell you what, I mean, they were down and out for a lot of years. They actually brought themselves back to life. I mean, ex-Pirate Jimmy Leland was a manager there for a while.
Believe it. Did he get a World Series title there?
I think he let him do a World Series, though. One or two, I'm not really sure.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at this outfield here. So they got Justin Upton in left field, like I was saying. They brought in Cameron Maben for center field, and they still have J.D. Martinez in right field. So the outfield looks pretty good in my mind right now. Obviously, J.D. Martinez, he's never a guy I was really high on, but he's showed big power here over the past couple seasons.
Well, I mean, they liked him down in Houston for a little bit, and then, I mean, he just eventually, gave way to George Springer and players like that. I mean, that was a team loaded in young talent and kind of made Martinez expendable, and
he really stepped it up when he came over to Detroit, though. He wasn't doing the same type of things when he was in Houston.
Well, he was a younger player, too. I mean, now he's a little bit more experienced, got a little bit more seasoning under his belt. I mean, but he's definitely a player I like in that lineup. I think he's going to be the big power guy in that lineup. I mean, as much as I like Miguel Cabrera.
Obviously.
But, I mean, he's going to be the one that gets on base for you. He's all, batting in that 3-hole. That's going to be huge. Setting up Victor Martinez and J.D. Martinez, and, don't forget Ian Kinsler, too.
They can have a TV sitcom, Martinez and Martinez. Sounds like a cop show.
Martinez squared.
They also have Anthony Gose in the outfield for a fourth outfielder as well. This is a guy with some speed. He plays good defense, and I think that's a solid outfielder. He's still a young guy. He's still growing right now. They think maybe he can become a starter at one time, but it's a pretty nice fourth outfielder to have right now. And they have Mike Avias as well, who can play all over the diamond, really, and in the outfield. They also have a couple minor league prospects in the outfield. The first one, Steve Moya, he's 24 years old. He only hit .240 with the .283 on base last year, but he had 30 doubles, 20 home runs. He only took 27 walks and K'd 162 times in 500 at-bats in AAA.
He's
but
a
this
big
guy,
man.
Yeah, this guy has huge power, but very poor plate discipline. Just a guy that can crush the ball.
Adam Dunn.
And another outfielder, Winton Bernard, he's 25 years old now, so he's a little bit older of a prospect. And he only played as high as Double-A last season. But look, he hit 301 with a 352 on base, 38 walks compared to 73 Ks, stole 43 bases and 534 bats. He's probably more of a fourth outfielder, but I think he's going to be a very good fourth outfielder, and he has a very good glove as well. So he is an upgrade defensively late in the game if you want as well. Then you look at the infield, you got at third base, Nick Castellanos. This is a guy, he was a top prospect at one time, and really they believe he can be a very good hitter. Hit for power, hit for average, be able to take the walk, keep his strikeouts down, but really he hasn't broken out with the bat yet, although he's a pretty solid third baseman, but they're really hoping he can turn into a major factor in this lineup as well. Then you got Jose Iglesias at shortstop. This is a guy...
Enrique's brother.
You're dead wrong. But this is a guy that everybody always said he can't hit well enough. He's a good defensive shortstop, but he can't hit. But he always seems to hit well. Like, not for power. He doesn't have speed or anything. But he always has a solid average at least, sometimes a very high average. And he gets on base. Now, he did have some injuries in the past, and it may affect his range a little bit. I don't know, but I like Jose Iglesias at the shortstop position.
Well, it's like you just said, as long as he stays healthy. I mean,
Right.
He's had problems with his legs in the past. I mean, if he can keep his 2 feet under him, I mean, that's obviously going to be an added bonus, but he's definitely going to need some time off to rest during the season.
They got a shortstop in the minors as well, Dixon Machado. He's 23 years old. He played in AAA last year, hit just 261 with a 313 on base, but he did have 15 stolen bases. They called him up to the bigs last year. He didn't play well at all. 235 average, a 307 on base, and 68 major league at bats. But they're looking at this guy as more of a bench player with very good to great defense. And they actually expect him to be able to improve with the bat some as well as he gets a little bit older, maybe 26 to 28 years old. So his bat has years until it comes around. But right now his defense is already good enough to be, I mean, it might even be better than Jose Iglesias' defense. Then on the other side of the infield, they got Ian Kinsler and Miguel Cabrera. They've been there for a couple years now. Ian Kinsler coming over from the Texas Rangers a few years ago. He's always been a good ball player. He's getting a little bit older now, but you can always expect good production out of him. And Miguel Cabrera, one of the best hitters in the game still. I know he's getting older. He has some injuries here and there or whatever, but he's still a beast at the plate. And like we were saying before, James McCann catching a young guy, showed a little bit of upside at the plate last year. They're going to give him a chance probably to be the starter. But like we said, they brought in Saltalamacchia as well. They have Holiday. So they have options at catcher. Maybe none that are going to be superstars or anything, but I think that's a solid trio right there. And Victor Martinez at DH, the ageless wonder. This guy always seems to hit. He's like David Ortiz
As long
almost
as he's healthy,
without the power.
he hits. Last year, I mean,
Yeah, he's always injured. Yeah, I get that.
probably came a little bit back. Probably came back last year a little bit too early from his injuries. I mean, as a result, he kind of struggled throughout the year. I mean, but if he had time to get healthy during the off season, I mean, this could be a very big plus for this lineup. And and he showed that whenever he is healthy, he produces.
When I hear his name, I think of Dracula. I have no reason why.
Draculas are often Martinez's.
I don't know. They could be.
Victor. But look, so I look at this offense. You got a lot of strong bats here. Victor Martinez, Miguel Cabrera, Ian Kinsler, Justin Upton. If Castellanos can come along. Cameron Maybin even is a solid bat. JD Martinez. There's a lot to go on here with this offense. And I think they're going to put up some serious runs this season. And then you look at the rotation. Right now, I'd say Jordan Zimmerman's their best pitcher. I'd place him in at the number 1. I'd give Anibal Sanchez a chance to be the number 2 and trust Justin Verlander at the number 3. And maybe not expect, but hope he can give you number 2 type numbers as well. So your 1, 2, 3 isn't terrible there. At the back end, you got Mike Pelfrey and Daniel Norris. Daniel Norris is a young guy, though, and he does have some upside. Maybe as high as a number 2. And this is the guy that was living out of his van for the Blue Jays.
I believe it.
So, I don't know how that affects you in any way. I'd rather have a nice home to go home to after.
No, man, he used to live in Chuck Norris's beard before he lived in the van, so the van's...
Maybe it's Chuck Norris's son.
Maybe.
Yeah, he had a nice second job as Chuck Norris's extra fist.
And then you got Matt Boyd and Shane Green at the back end. Shane Green they brought over from the Yankees. What was it, last year or the year before? He's not a great pitcher, but he could be a solid back end of the rotation guy. So while it isn't spectacular, I mean, I think if things come together right, this could be a pretty good rotation.
I'll tell you what, I mean, they got a guy in the minor leagues. They got an Cespedes deal.
Michael Fulmer?
Michael Fulmer. I mean, he's the guy I think that's actually going to come up and make a big splash in this rotation. I actually really like this guy a lot.
Yeah, 22 years old. He had a 2.24 ERA, 125 Ks compared to just 30 walks and 125 innings pitched between A Advanced and Double A last year. They're probably going to start him out in the minor leagues, you'd think. Maybe Triple A, maybe Double A, but they're going to give him some time in Triple A, but I do expect him to come up this season and impact this team.
Well, if he pitches lights out like he did last year, I mean, you're definitely going to see him at some point or another. I mean, it's going to be better to bring him up than maybe trade a few pieces away to try to get something else.
And then, I mean, you look at it, if Verlander pitches like he did at the end of last season, Jordan Zimmerman gives what he usually gives you, and Anibal Sanchez has a little bit of a bounce back, then you bring up Fulmer. I mean, there's 4 pitchers right there, and then you can fill out the 5th pitcher with any one of these guys.
I mean, of course, they're going to probably want it to be Daniel Norris, but...
Right. Yeah, Michael Fulmer, he throws in the mid-90s as well. He's not a guy that's going to throw 100 mile an hour or anything, but he's still, mid-90s is still a power pitcher.
I've just never been a big Mike Palfrey guy.
Yeah, me neither. I didn't like him from Minnesota very much. Then they got another pitcher, Josh Turley. He's 25 years old, so he's a little bit older. He only pitched in Double A last season, had a 3.29 ERA, only 103 Ks and 153 innings. But he only walked 35 batters as well. He's a lefty. He only throws mid to high 80s. He's a junk ball pitcher. Now, his upside's probably a number 5. So you might see him this season as well, and he could maybe step into that number 5 role if none of these guys like Daniel Norris or Mike Pelfrey work out how you want. Then you look at the bullpen. The bullpen, it looks pretty good to me. I mean, you got Francisco Rodriguez at the back end. Mark Lowe isn't the greatest pitcher in the world, but he's still a pretty solid reliever. And then Justin Wilson, like you were saying, they brought in Bruce Rondon. This guy looked like he was going to be a closer at one point when he was in the minor leagues. They brought him up, gave him a little bit of a chance to pitch at the back end of the bullpen. Sort of struggled a little bit, but he's still a young guy, has a big arm, and I think he's going to be a major part of this bullpen. If not this year, still in the future. I do like this guy.
Well, he's still relatively young.
Yeah, exactly. And not to mention Bobby Parnell. If they can get him pitching like he was with the Mets a couple years ago, then you got another guy you can place in the 7th or 8th inning there. And not to mention Alex Wilson, who they used a lot last season, pitched 70 innings. He only did strike out 38 batters, but he only let up 61 hits and walked 11 guys. Had a 2.19 ERA. They brought him over from Boston. He had a 1.91 ERA the prior season with Boston. So this guy has been pitching pretty well over the past 2 seasons. And right now it looks like he could be lined up for the 7th or 8th inning.
Better learn how to strike people out.
So what are you thinking?
I mean, this division's really, really, really going to be hard to predict this year. I mean, I could see either one of the teams, with the exception of the White Sox, actually winning this thing.
Still, I think the White Sox look pretty good as well. Don't forget they brought in Todd Frazier. They brought in Brett Lawrie to play second base. They signed a couple good catchers, including Alex Avila, who, like we mentioned, Detroit lost. So I think they brought in some good pieces. The owner, Navarro, I like what they did out there in Chicago. Although I liked them last season too, and they played like garbage.
That they did. I mean, they have some nice pieces. I mean, but obviously we'll talk about them in our White Sox segment.
Right. But Detroit Tigers, I'm going to say 3rd place for Detroit this season.
I like them in 3rd place also. I just don't think they have the rotation to overtake anybody right now. I mean, I think that Cleveland definitely has the best pitching in this division.
Right.
But I mean, they're like, I just look at these guys and I think they're the anti-Indians. All the bats. I'm not going to say they have no pitching, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say they have no pitching. Zimmerman, Verlander, Sanchez, and like you said, you love that Fulmer guy. I mean, there's 4 pitchers right there that you can, I wouldn't say you can trust, but I wouldn't mind going into a season with.
Well, as much as I want to say, I mean, I think Zimmerman's going to be solid, but you got to wonder how going into the American League is actually going to affect his overall numbers, too. I mean,
I'm sure they will.
Even though he is pitching in a spacious ballpark.
Right.
I mean, he's still facing that extra hitter.
Yeah, it's not a terrible division to pitch in the American League, obviously. So you're going to agree with me and say 3rd place. How about you, Jim?
Does it really matter considering the Royals and the Indians are in the division? So obviously my heart wants the Indians to win, and my mind tells me the Royals are going to win. So third, I guess, by default.
We'll have to see, man. A lot of people are saying the Royals are actually going to come in last place in this division.
Never.
Well, guess who's the number one pitcher?
I shouldn't say never. I'm
guess
just
who's
saying not right
listed as the number one pitcher for the Royals?
JK47.
Edinson Volquez.
It's all right.
You're the one
I mean, they did it last year with Volquez as the number one pitcher. I'm just saying, man, you hate Volquez, and you think they're going to win the division again?
They went out and got an ace in the playoffs. That's what mattered.
Well, actually, he didn't pitch very well for Kansas City.
No, he did not.
They actually got it done with the bats. But that's it. Wrap it up, man. Detroit Tigers, third place. I like the offense. And really, man, I'm not down on this pitching rotation either. I get it. You got Mike Pelfrey in the rotation. You probably not going to see him there all year long if this team can just stay in the race.
Poor Detroit. The Pistons are garbage. The Lions are garbage. The Tigers are mediocre. They got nothing.
How about those Red Wings?
They're garbage too now. They're barely even in the playoff race. But that's all we got for you, fans. Follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Follow me on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube and click and subscribe. We got more baseball coming, so stay tuned.